Good afternoon, everyone. I'm George Sandikos, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to this year's Business Forum, the title of which is A Vision for the Future of Business. And it's a privilege and, quite frankly, quite humbling, excuse me, we did not acknowledge His Eminence Archbishop Dimitrios and the other hierarchs and beloved friends. We're thrilled to have you here. It's because I'm nervous, because I'm sitting with such a distinguished group of men who have accomplished so much in life, and we're going to spend the next hour and a half or so in dialogue with them, getting their thoughts as business leaders, not only of our community, but of the United States, actually, and hear their thoughts about the future of business. But before I do that, because I am surrounded by three quite remarkable men, there are three remarkable women in the audience who should be acknowledged. They're wives. Margot Katzimatidis is here. I think everyone knows these gentlemen well, and their bios are in the book, but I'll just briefly give an update. George Barakis is a pioneer in the pharmaceutical field. He's a renowned philanthropist in medicine, health, the arts. He's our former chairman of Leadership 100. He led Leadership 100 through one of its most important transitions. He recently brought together the most brilliant minds in medicine from Greece and the United States at a groundbreaking symposium by Harvard Medical School and Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. John Katzimatidis, chairman and CEO of the Red Apple Group, who has holdings in everything. Oil refining, retail, petroleum products, convenience stores, aviation, supermarkets. John has become a critical voice in public affairs and had an incredible run for the Republican primary for mayor of New York City. And I would say there are many people who wish he had succeeded in that race. And also Dimitrios, who is chairman and CEO of CD Metropolis and Company. It's an acquisitions and management firm which has restructured, built, and grown numerous businesses in the US and Europe. The best one, of course, is Hostess Brands, because we all get to still enjoy our Twinkies. But there are I know. But just as importantly, Dean is a longtime member of Leadership 100 and has just been appointed President of Faith and Endowment for Orthodoxy and Hellenism, and we congratulate him for that. The idea, this is meant to really be a dialogue and an interactive session, and I think getting perspective from each of them would benefit us all. But before we get started, I think I'll ask each of them to spend a few minutes talking about their backgrounds, their early years, their involvement with the Orthodox faith and Hellenic culture, and how that helped them achieve the success that they have today. So maybe, George, would you start that off?
Well, I grew up in Lowell, Massachusetts, which was a hotbed of Greek community. When I grew up, we had over 25,000 Greeks living there. We controlled the city with the mayor and chief of police and city councils. Just to give you a little background here, when I moved in the middle school, my class had 225 kids, 190 were Greek. So I think we controlled the middle school also. But my parents came here from Greece, they're immigrants. Very proud of my father and his brother. They came here, worked in the railroads all the way to Colorado. Then they received a letter from the father that there would be a war, First, Second Balkan War. They all went back with a couple hundred Greeks from Bayonne, New Jersey. And they fought for a couple of years against first the Turks and then the Bulgarians who wanted a seaport in the area of Macedonia. So then he came back to the United States, and he had 5 children, me being the youngest. What I can tell you is that basically we lived in walking distance to the church, and we all went to church, and we had a day school, the first day school in the country, the Hellenic American Academy, We all attended there, and all my children attended there also. And, you know, the most important thing that I cherish the most is the old days growing up. I worked for my uncle in his restaurant when I was 12, getting paid 29.5 cents an hour, but I learned the basic, he never went to school, but I'll tell you, he was a great economist and a great financier. He taught us how to make money as we were kids. My cousins, we all worked with him. And it was always making money for a profit. Make sure you show a profit. Otherwise, you're not going to pay for the lights, the heat, the floor, you know. So we learned that at a very early age, and I think that carried me through my life. And I'll stop there and then go on and have John say his piece, and then I'll come back.
Thanks, John.
My two grandfathers came to America in 1913. They left my dad in the old country to take care of his sisters, take care of his mother, and my dad didn't get to come over here till after he got married in 1949 and got married and had me. I was here 6 months old. We all gather a lot of respect for our country. And one of my biggest impressions, the last time when I ran for mayor this year, and I was in the Greek parade, we had a float, you know, we were doing politics, so we had a float, and we were going up Fifth Avenue, and we played a song on the float. A friend of mine recorded it, Jay Black and the Americans. Only in America, land of opportunity, you go to sleep a pauper and you wake up a millionaire. And I could see going up Fifth Avenue, I could see all the papudas, all the grandfathers and grandmothers with tears in their eyes that, well, maybe their children could do it too. And that's one of the things I was trying to inspire the kids that all you have to do is work hard. I grew up in Harlem. My father was a busboy. Never made more than $100 a week. And I was able to make it in America. And that was one of my objects, is to inspire the young people. And if I could make the difference in a few kids, to me that was important. Thank you.
Well, I must have been more fortunate than both of these gentlemen, because I seem to have had a lot more fun in my career. In any event, after graduate school, I joined a wonderful company by the name of General Telephone Electronics, and that sort of exposed me to some government work as well. And I was lucky to live all over the world. I traveled constantly for many years, 30 days a month. I would travel to some different continent, and it was extremely fulfilling, extremely satisfying for me. I was curious, I was high energy. I came from Greece when I was 9. My parents, of course, hardworking folks. They inspired me, and inspired in me something that, a curiosity that really unfolded an incredible exploratory journey for me around the world. I loved it and I enjoyed it. It allowed me to take risks. Their love for me gave me the confidence that drove me to do what I've done. And, you know, we talk about faith. I was invited, and I know John was there, was supposed to speak at a JP Morgan conference this week, the past couple of days at the RITZ-CARLTON in Key Biscayne. And they wanted to talk about risk capital, sweat capital strategy, and I found this, talking about faith capital, a lot easier than the other. But just in case, as my father would always say, plan on a lot of hard work along with faith. So faith is important, but a lot of hard work is also very, very important. So in any event, if anything, if I could share with any young people anything, I would tell them to reach for whatever they really stimulates them. I think the more you pursue the things you like, money comes along. I'm not sure how critical that is in any event at the end of the day, because we try to figure out what philanthropic causes to give it to, which in itself is quite an interesting journey. But the most wonderful thing for me was to explore and employ my energy and my curiosity all over the world, and I've enjoyed it very, very much. We've made 78 acquisitions. Many of them have been just exciting and fun. Hostess Circus, the recent one, and the Twinkie has really somehow touched all of America. It's been one of our smallest deals, and yet it has been just a wonderful, wonderfully embraced brand, and we look forward to seeing it succeed, and it is successful. It's getting distributed back into the shelves, and so thanks to the American consumer that's made that happen. So with that, we're going to turn it over to questions.
Dean, you talked about what it takes for younger people today to achieve their dreams. Maybe George and John, if you could comment on your thoughts about, or what advice would you give young people today who are trying to be successful and achieve the greatness that you have? George.
Well, first of all, I was very fortunate that going first to pharmacy school, then along going into biochemistry. It was just before the Vietnam War. I got drafted, and fortunately I was stationed for 2.5 years in Washington, D.C. And I purchased all the drugs for Walter Reed, Pentagon, Fort Myers, and Fort Belvoir. At that time I met a lot of people in the pharmaceutical industry. When I was getting out, I got offered many positions, and I picked one which I felt would be a learning process. That was a division of Johnson & Johnson, which was McNeil, which you may know. We made a product called Tylenol, and I was the product director for Tylenol, when we invented it to the market in 1963. I went on into the hospital division, and during the Vietnam War, so I traveled a lot around the country, different military installations. Every naval operation, because they were bringing drugs over to Vietnam. We were making antifungal tablets, we were making painkillers, muscle relaxants, and I decided that I could do it on my own. That if I'm going to give them all this business, I could do it myself. Which I started a company back in 1959. I should say, I'm sorry, 1969. I was in the allergy business. I sold it to a New York Stock Exchange company. And 9 years later, I was on their board for 3 or 4 years. Then I bought an eye company, a pharma company, prescription drugs. You may see the products in the drugstore shops now. One of them is Con-A for allergic conjunctivitis. The other one is for ocular problems. You'll see the name Muro, M-U-R-O. That's my company. There were 2 professors that I had in college. One was Murphy, one was Rosenberg. That's how they got the M-U-R-O business. So I kept that name. One very important thing I learned was that not only in the United States, which is the greatest country in the world, that I was able to travel around the world and set up distribution houses all over Europe and Asia, spend time in Thailand, Hong Kong, even China. Spent a lot of time in Europe, and then I sold that company to Bachelon, which you all may know makes contact lens solutions. Then I went into the asthma business, and because I always did the marketing research to see what's the most prevalent problem the United States has, aside from diabetes. If I had a drug for diabetes, it would take me 16 years to get approval. For cholesterol, 16 years. But I knew that with asthma, I could get a fast track with the FDA. Fortunately, I had 2 senators in Massachusetts, one Paul Saunders, who was my neighbor, who I could call and say, Paul, I need an appointment at FDA. Get it for me next week, you know. Otherwise, you'd never get an appointment for 2 years. I was very fortunate because I learned a lot on my own. I never had a marketing course in my life, but I was a self-made marketing man. And I challenged everyone at Johnson & Johnson, and you know, I got promoted into the marketing division, being the first time there was somebody who was more scientific than marketing. But because I gave him the name of Tylenol, and I gave it to someone today, asked me where'd you get the name. The name was N-acetyl-parabenophenol was the chemical name, and I took the T-Y-L and E-N-O-L at the end, made a Tylenol and change, and he said, it'll never work. Well, I said, you better pay me if it does. 10 years later, $3 billion worth of business, pretty good. So I said, I better do it myself. The asthma drug was, I had the #1 asthma drug, and Your Eminence, believe it or not, my biggest competitor was Major Harris. Two Greeks fighting each other, and over the business. And I was able to put it into 32 countries. And then a German company came to see me, one of the largest German companies, and said, listen, we want to break into the United States. You make the deal, we'll talk. Let's talk even then. And we did, and what happened in '98? Sold the whole thing. My first company was public. I don't like people bothering me, so I went private the second I did. So I was private, I owned 100% of the stock. And I sold it, was on their board for a number of years, the chemical board, pharmaceutical board. The largest energy company and also insurance company, Allianz Insurance from Munich, and Eon Insurance from Düsseldorf. And that's where my career ended. But it's hard work, picking the right lawyer, picking the right accountant, picking the right people. Those are the 3 top ingredients: people. People who are dedicated, who want to work for you, believe in you, and work the hours without looking at the clock. But have a product knowledge, and knowledge of what the future should bring for them. And I think that's very important for the young people to understand. You go for it. You may fail. Get back, as Frank Sinatra says in the song, come back and keep fighting, and you'll make it someday, because you can learn from your mistakes. And we all make mistakes.
You guys went to pharmaceutical school, you guys went to business school. I was 8 credits short. I never graduated. But similar, hard work. Hard work by accident. While I was going to college, I got into the food business. And what did I learn? You learn that you convince your employees that you all have to row the boat in the same direction. You need a smart lawyer, especially when I was 20 years old. What did I know? And I opened up 1 store and then 2 stores. But I convinced all my suppliers. No, I had no bank credit. There was no bank's credit. I knew nothing about finance. So you deal with the products, you deal with the what you have in front of you. I convinced my suppliers that as I grow, they're going to do more business. And it's not like it is today, where if you don't pay the bill within 10 days, and usually you're likely to pay it in 9 days, that's it, you don't have any product. In those days, it was open. I convinced my suppliers, help me grow, and you'll do more business. Leadership in your employees, all rowing the boat in the same direction. Getting the people you do business with to trust you, that you have faith and integrity. And I started when I was 20 years old, and within 4 years, I was able to grow from 1 store to 10 stores. At the age of 24, 25, I was making $1 million a year. And that was the beginning. And just take that and go on to other areas. I'll just mention one more area. The other thing I realized, that in New York City, unless you had a very long lease or you own a building, you don't have a business. So what did I do? I started buying real estate. And that was the secret. because buying the real estate, I was running a food business that was just a food business. But what was the purpose of the food business? It paid for the mortgages and the real estate. And what really made the money 10 years later? It was the real estate. And that's what matters. So being able to use what you have and be innovative and have people have faith in you. And this is what our kids have to learn. That they have to have, people have to trust them to go to the next step and grow that way. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Well, let me make one comment first of all. We're very fortunate the three of us are up here, but let me say this. The Greek community is pretty special. I can't tell you, no matter where I travel throughout the United States, certainly around the world, particularly Europe, there's so many successful Greeks, I can't believe it. University presidents, doctors, lawyers, PhDs, financial people. Wall Street's full of wonderful Greek financial people. It's, Stavridis, the commander of NATO forces around the world. John Calamos here. Calamos Funds known around the world. Just so many successful people. If I do get engaged with this faith role that I took on at the Archbishop's and Mr. Harris's request, I'm hoping to evolve into it in due course. But there's one thing I'd like to accomplish with that role, to be frank with you, Archbishop, and that is to create somehow a more formal network like our brethren, the Hebrei, have done, the Jewish community, so well. Because we're somewhat isolated. There's so many capable Greek people. I can't believe it. I'm so proud. Whenever I run into so many unusual Greeks, and they're not here and there, there are many of them. And you know, we're looking at this community here. There's a lot of successful folks here as well. So I think we should be proud of our heritage. There was something about it. Certainly the poverty of our parents that coming here in America, looking for a new life. But I should tell you that this is a wonderful, wonderful Hellenist heritage that we all share. And I think we should be all proud of it and reach out and be proud to and be affiliated with other Greeks. The thing that's special with the Jewish community is they support and network so actively with each other. And with us, I don't see it as jealousy. I used to hear that, but I don't see that as an issue. It's just that we haven't formalized these connections as much as we should. So with that, I hope to play that type of a role with faith as we go forward. As regards to some of the things that John and George have talked about, look, everyone has to work hard in order to succeed. There's no question about it. Our parents did, and folks that we look at, like these two guys and many of you out there. But the reality is you still have to really feel a passion for what you're doing, and that gives you the energy, the leadership. Many of the businesses we've acquired, and many of them were troubled. I mean, and it took a certain vision and a leadership to really bring bring together the talents and the commitment of the people that were driving hard these companies. I've enjoyed it. Unfortunately, often it meant pretty much guiding out a lot of existing management because they just did not share the excitement that we would have for something like the Twinkies. Often we would buy businesses like Hillstown Holdings was a wonderful $8 billion business in the UK, and it migrated into a lot of different businesses that it really had no purpose to do. It was in the leather tanning business up in Canada. It had furniture business, and the biggest furniture business in the UK. It had a huge agribusiness. It had a chocolate business. We sold all of those off and really created a very cohesive objective. One that people could identify with. It's a clear mission, and the energy that is focused on executing that mission. We took that company, it's called Premier. It's the largest food business in the UK today. It's a public company. But all of this, capitalizing on what these two gentlemen have said, not only hard work, but it's also the leadership to identify very clear missions that people can identify with, and the energy that you put in front of those missions really pull together everything. People really want to succeed. There's a lot of hardworking people in these companies. They're buried under a lot of stuff sometimes, and they're dying to release their own energies and to see something clear. Many companies do not have a very clear mission, and without it, I think it's very, very difficult to get to the finish line. And what has made us successful, and thank God it has, is to go in and before we even get involved with an acquisition, we must have a specific strategy, a very clear mission, and when we get in it, we're relentless. And within a year, those that want to drive in that same direction are on board. Within 2 or 3 months, those are out. It doesn't take long. It doesn't take a lot of judgment about it. It's just you can feel the energy in the room.
Over the last few years, I had the opportunity of joining the family business. As some of you know, we are in the meat manufacturing business and celebrating our 100-year anniversary this year. So we make the laconico. I think you had the opportunity to try it. When I worked in the business growing up, I used to walk through the plant with my father, and you'd see little Greek ladies peeling the oranges, and you walk through now, and it's little Dominican and Puerto Rican and El Salvadorian. So we're still doing it. It's just a different situation. But I worked elsewhere after college for about 10, 15 years, and joined the family business about 4 years ago, and I've been challenged with the task of growing a brand that nobody knows anything about. So we're 100 years old. I think we make some of the finest products that the country has to offer. The problem I'm challenged with is getting people to understand who we are, understand the quality that we have, the high nutritional. We have a couple of different lines. We're expanding into other different brands, but I read an article about Mr. Metropolis and buying distressed brands and taking those brands and taking them to the next level. And I know Mr. Barakas and Mr. Katzmatidis, so I was interested to hear what you have to say if you were put in my position, how you might proceed.
Yeah. Brands are very unique. They have to convey something that consumers really want and something they associate with. Invariably, many of the brands we've acquired, we've had hundreds. I mean, you recognize so many of them, from champagne businesses to Ghirardelli chocolates, and so many wonderful brands. I'm so proud of them. I remember my kids would always work the shelves, and sometimes they'd get kicked out of supermarkets. But in any event, there's going to be a very clear proposition to the consumer with your brand. If you're going to keep it very niche, and I'm really not that familiar with your brand. If you want to broaden its appeal to a much broader American audience, I know a lot of Locanico. I can't find it. And it's so unique to me, the Locanico. So unique. I probably, and you know, it takes a conversation that's significantly longer than 5 minutes here, but I do feel that if you really want to commercialize it and introduce it to a much broader audience, it has to have some elements that appeal to that broader audience. It shouldn't be, and then targeted to them. It shouldn't be specific to the Greek community. It shouldn't be Greek titled, like Greek yogurt has become obviously a commonplace concept. But I'd love to engage you, and my 2 sons, by the way, have reinvented some brands that I was totally stuck with. I mean, I didn't know what to do with Chef Boyardee, for example, or some others, but they did some very special things. But I think it takes a separate conversation, but I think you have to be very clear about having a proposition to the consumer, and then putting together extensions of the product you make that in effect appeal to a broader audience than maybe you're targeting. So,
John, do you have anything to add?
Well, I do my best thinking at 3 o'clock in the morning. You have to clear your head and come up and say, okay, what statements can I make on my product that if I stopped 100 people on the street, 90 of them will think it's great. You have to appeal to the biggest audience you can. I mean, does your product cure baldness? Does it, you know, what does it do for you? I remember when we were trying to promote our gasoline products. And why is my gasoline products better than the other people's? We came up with a marketing campaign that eventually almost doubled our sales at retail. That our gasoline, you know, we have our own refinery. Our gasoline is made from 100% American oil, North American oil, and converted to gasoline by Americans. In other words, we buy all our products from Canada. It comes into our refinery. Our workers are all Americans. So we came up with the campaign, our gasoline is made from 100% American crude oil. And people loved it. So you just have to come up, you know your product better than all of us. You got to come up with a campaign that when you stop 100 people in the street and tell them about your product, that 90 of them will say, hey, you know, that sounds good.
Why don't you come and see me? You're only 10 minutes away. I think number one, you need distribution in all the supermarkets. Number two, you need the shelf space. You talk to management, you want high-level shelf space, which is difficult to get.
Yeah.
Because I know we're doing on cosmetics. L'Oreal wants that woman to look eye level, not down. The old days, Revlon used to buy the shelf space. Look eye level when you walk in. The other thing is, once you have full distribution in the supermarkets in the general area, whether it's in New York, Pathmark, New England, which could be from Walmart to Market Basket, Shaw's, Donaldson's, Roche. Then you have to promote the product to the general public. But the key are the employees in those supermarkets. When people are looking for something, that they know that to tell them what shelf space, where it is, where it's located. Neighborhood Brands is the one to buy. Isn't that your company, Neighborhood Brands?
Old neighborhood food.
Old neighborhood,
Right?
right?
Shrimp, right.
Okay. But you need to get shelf space first. You can't go out and sell a product without people able to buy it. I mean, it's got to be on shelves. Now you got to convince the buyers of these supermarkets to put it on your shelf so you can now promote it and market it.
I got to say one more comment because I started in the supermarket business. It gets more complicated than that. These buyers in the supermarkets will cut your throat and basically.
I deal with it every day.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll walk in and say, oh, we want 10 cases free per store, we want this, we want that, we want that. And there's no guarantee that the product is going to stay in the store. Well, by the way, on the Greek yogurt, the shirabi and the faye, now, the guy, the Turkish guy that started the shabani, see, I'm not in the food business anymore. We were with him the other night, and the one thing, you know, the Greeks are against him because they think he's Turkish, but he's not. He's Kurdish. And if he marketed that fact, that he'll get better acceptance. But he's done a great job. 80% of our yogurt sales now are Greek yogurt. But you gotta get what you have to do, I think, is get the public to like it. And then, I'll tell you what I'll do, what I would do if I were you. I'd get a bunch of marketing people, and if you want to get into a certain supermarket chain, you get them call all the store managers. Do you have this product? Do you have this product? Do you have this product? And you create that they can't live without your product.
So open up a telemarketing center?
Absolutely. Get 2 or 3 girls at $8 an hour, and you call up and you say, okay, do you carry this product? And the manager says, oh no, what is that? Oh, I'm never going to shop your store again.
I congratulate mostly for leading in the Greek American community and giving back and always availing themselves whenever the circumstances demand. The question I want to ask is that to the metropolis, Dean, you alluded to it, and I think it's an exceptionally important point. I'd just like to take it to the next level, if I may, and add one other dimension to it. Statistics will tell us that the Greek American community per capita is one of the most wealthiest, 1 and 2 in the Jewish American community, 1 and 2 in education and financial capital. You mentioned regarding how the Jewish American community networks and supports each other. A program that's worth noting also is the Birthright Israel program, which that program has sent approximately 350,000 Jewish American school children to Israel so they can identify with their culture and traditions. But the question I want to ask is, I get this all the time, for example. Although we live in the best country in the world, although we still have great opportunities, it still becomes more and more challenging and more and more demanding for our next generation of graduates coming out of college today to find work, no matter what the circumstances are. You still need a break. You still need somebody to open the door. I think it's highly important. And part of the agenda of networking, I like to see a more institutionalized, within the Greek American community concept, where these students who do come out of college have a way to be able to present their biographies, and be able to use the talent that we have within the Greek American community to try to open up some doors and get them in the door. It's up to them to get them, to stay in the door, but we need to try to help them get in the door. I can't tell you how many, for example, my organization, these kind of CVs I get on a monthly basis. In this environment, Greek Americans looking for somewhere to get a job. And some of them I've even sent to you folks up there. And in some cases you've been helpful. But I like to see it more institutionalized within the Greek American community. And if you can just speak to that.
Two things. We just opened an internship program, both at Hostess and Pabst and one of the other businesses, that for some of the young Greek, there's almost 50% unemployment among young educated Greeks. So we just agreed to take some interns from Greece into some of our programs. But your point is very well taken there. It's how do we try to focus, and I wish I had the answer, and I'm not sure I do, but nevertheless, I am very proud of the Greek community, and yet, as you say it, I'm not so sure I'm actively looking specifically at some Greek vitized resumes to consider for positions that we have in various businesses. So I have to think about how to do it more effectively. How do we consider the resumes that come across our desks? I must tell you, I probably get a lot of resumes. We have interviewed, my guess is in the past year, maybe 4 or 5 out of maybe 100, and that's not a very good average. And I must say, I'm not so sure that I reflect an attitude that favors hiring a Greek student. And I'm not so sure I should do that, but nevertheless, I feel strongly about it, and yet I don't actively do it. And let me say this, I'm glad you're posing that question. I did endorse quickly this internship program from the Hellenic Initiative, which I find very worthwhile. But that's a very good point. I need to raise it in my own mind as a much more priority issue than I have, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And it's an issue. Thank you.
Just a comment real fast on it. I admire the Jewish community because they really, really network.
Yeah.
And one of the things maybe we should do as a small subsidiary of Leadership 100 or even FED is create a national center for Greek resumes and network. Look. You got 970, I heard 970 Leadership 100 members. Probably 800 of them are still in business. Create a center for resumes. We know where the jobs are. We know where the potential jobs are. And let's network with it ourselves. It pays to start a network situation. Because today, there are no jobs. Very few people are hiring. You have to know, you have to be able to go to the right person that needs people. I know that people call me, and I look at those applications myself, and out of the last 5 phone calls we did, I probably hired 4 of the 5 people. But it takes knowing somebody. You can't, it's harder to get a job today than it was 10 years ago, 20 years. 10 years ago, everybody was hiring. but it's a tougher situation, tougher economy. And George, I'd like to hear from you.
See, today the internet is taking over.
Yeah.
You see people at Panera Bread, McDonald's with the internet, and they're sending their resumes to companies. When people come to see me, I tell them, listen, if there's openings, you're not going to do it. Human resource is the key to all large companies. And you just can't go on the internet like 10,000 other young people do to look for a job. They're just going to throw it all. And you do need someone. You better find someone in that industry that knows people in that industry to get at least the door open. Now it's up to you. It's up to you to be interviewed. It's up to you to sell yourself to get the position. Whether it's in marketing, sales, research, whatever profession, it's up to you. But I always tell the young people, listen, you may be sending it on the internet, but I'll tell you right now, some of the boards I sit in, they get 5,000 for 10 jobs. I mean, come on. I mean, knock on the door. Ask someone. But you need to know something.
Yeah, the other thing I look at, you know, I interviewed one kid that I really needed somebody for a certain job. And I said, well, what's your salary? He says, well, I need over $200,000 a year. I'd say, look, I would work for you for nothing. I would work for whatever you want to pay me, but if I can prove myself to you and make you a lot of money, I just want to raise. Teach these kids the ability to work for it and to be able to achieve greatness.
How are you adjusting your businesses, and what trends do you see for future generations for food, and reconcile that perhaps with some of the trends that we're seeing in the healthcare sector? So specifically, it seems like there's an increasing number of people that are having an intolerance to sugar, an intolerance to gluten. So where do you see, to me it would seem like in your sectors it would be natural to start developing. I mean, Twinkies are great, but it seems like it would be a natural fit to have some of the people think about what are the next generation foods to accommodate your businesses.
Well, two things I'll start with. Number one, as regards to business today, I think there are two aspects of running a good company. Number one is to make sure it's operationally very efficient. To accomplish that, and without that, you can dream about any extensions you want, but operationally super efficient. IT and technology is absolutely critical to give you the full visibility in every aspect of your business, from pricing to production costs to purchasing. Everything has to be IT oriented. I devote almost every business we've bought that's in trouble. I'm always appalled that the management deals with macro facts as opposed to micro facts. I do encourage management to use instincts and not always structure their decisions based on facts, but they better have the facts there at their fingertips to assess a business as it moves forward to be successful. So that's the operating side. The other side is to the type of products that the business, in almost every case we've acquired a company, you cannot at least, I'm not on a crusade to change American consumer tastes. I wish I was, but it's not my cup of tea. So I do, first of all, focus on providing a lot of indulgent products that may not be good for you, but I'll tell you, the American consumer gets pretty upset when they find the slightest change in that formulation. So it is our job to provide that formulation, that indulgent opportunity that the consumer wants. Almost invariably, as we look at new products, almost invariably the extensions move towards healthier concepts. Always, whether replacing sugars, replacing fats, there's certainly saturated fats. There's a lot of work that's being done constantly in the R&D part of our business, but that's what moves the needle. It does not. If you forget the basic premise, though, I don't think you're going to be successful. So I think it is a very, very important migratory exercise that you must take, and I feel committed to that. Not because of some higher moral issue, it's because I think there are a lot of consumers, many, many more than there were 10 years ago, that want selections that are healthier, and I think all new products from these basic businesses we buy invariably focus on healthier alternatives in the products. So, sorry.
I agree with Dean 100%. My daughter, who came into our business, I said to her, what company do you want to start at? She says, I want to start in the food business. I said, ugh. Ugh, represents 3% of our sales. And it's constantly changing. The food business is constantly changing, and it's changing in the last 10 years a great deal. The success of Whole Foods, where they're pushing organic products and they're pushing the fact they want healthier products. A lot of people are reading the labels more. For the first time in their lives, the sales of sodas is going down, and the sale of water, bottled water, is going up. Some of these national manufacturers only cared about how good does a product taste, how good does it taste, and how long it's going to last on the shelf. A lot of you don't know that in this bottle is only good for 2 years. There's a date underneath of that. And people would say, wine. How come water is water? Wine. Well, they discovered the plastic in this bottle. The plastic within 2 years leaks into the water, and it's not good for you. Okay? I don't want to tell you what it causes, but it's not good for you. People, because of the internet, are becoming more knowledgeable. We got to get to, you got to look at the other thing. We were talking about it at lunch today. Autism. It used to be 1 out of 2,000 children. Now it's 1 out of 80. What's going on? Something is going on. And to help save America, the thing we got to do is we have to just eat healthier, and I think people are becoming more aware. By the way, the other thing they said? What's that? The other thing that they said about that autism, and maybe the pharmaceutical industry, that one of the theoretical causes, and it's not a theoretical cause, the explosion of the use of antibiotics in the 1990s and the 2000s, they're looking at as a possible cause of direction.
You're right. See, what has happened in the last 20 years has been the technology has boomed, in the sense that the physician, if there's some in the room, know when you're taking the blood from an individual, you're now able to identify more than you ever did before because of the new technology. Like gluten, the flour, whether it's the sugar, the type of sugar, the different types of sugars. Fructose, glucose, cane sugar, but they also use sorbitol, substitute sugars, which sometimes are worse than the actual sugar. The other thing is the nutritionalists today are more advanced than the nutritionalists were 20 years ago. So they're able to identify. Today they're trying to find out why are there more children that have attention deficit disorders. Why are there children that have major problems growing up? Oh, it could be the additives. Now they're saying about Diet Cokes now. The other day, sir. That the Diet Coke maybe, or the Diet Pepsi, or the Zero, whatever you want to call it, may be worse than the classic Coke. So,
and a year ago, they said, we'd rather have you drink Diet Coke than regular.
Exactly. And that's because of the new technology, not only with the person, but with the equipment that they're using. You talk about saccharides, they're off almost out. Then you look at equal coming in, then you see the other sugar substitutes. But you got to look at monosaccharides, polysaccharides. I mean, it's so complex. And we're all different. It's all going to become personalized medicine. Each one of us is going to be different, and that's why they're taking, when the baby's born, they're now doing more things than they did before. Because, like I've always equated to people, listen, I don't need to take an aspirin when I get a headache. You may need 3, she may need 2, he may need 1. What does it tell you? Everyone's different. So don't look at the label and think 2 tablets every 4 times a day of aspirin or Tylenol or any other Advil, equal, you know, any one of those. It's you as an individual. You start small and build up, because one may do the trick.
Hey, George, I never drink Coke, and I've had ADHD all my life. By the way, we have owned some very organic, like the Sprouts Farmers Markets. We've done that deal, and it's a very, very healthy concept.
Thank you very much.
You know, it goes back, you know, I was born on the island of Mykonos. And you know what I think about sometimes? You know, the average age of Mykonos before they tried to become Americanized was probably 95 to 105. And you look at the products those people ate. You know, they ate products with no fertilizers from the ground. They ate, you know, pomegranates, they ate figs, they ate almonds. Go back to nature, go back to, don't, you know, I tell my maid at home and cooks for us sometimes, I said, go back to the basics. Don't buy products that have been changed by our manufacturers. Go to the basics.
Gentlemen, Michael Pappas, I reside in New York, and I had, George, you mentioned it, and then Dean, you also mentioned it. There must have been times in your life when it was difficult to continue to follow your vision. Everybody was telling you couldn't do it, whether it was a mistake and everyone said see, whether it was something that was innovative and nobody was thinking or even thinking it was a good idea or even recognizing that it was. Could you just describe a time in your life during your business career that something like this happened and you mentioned that your parents gave you the confidence to succeed and continue through it. If there's a time that sticks out in your mind, if you could just share it with us and how you got through it.
For myself, I've never had such a time. It's my personality grew with the opportunities that somehow were in front of me, and I just went out after them and got them. There were many times, however, that it gets very discouraging to push a stone up the hill, and you're wondering when the hell is the top of the hill, when are you going to get to the other side, and you got to persevere, and it's not easy, and perseverance is a very important element and characteristic for all successful people. But there's been moments that I have gotten discouraged by, but not discouraged to the point where I want to give up. I don't know why. There was always that passion driving that stone up the mountain, but perseverance is a very critical factor. But if you don't have the passion for what you do, and I've been lucky to have it all my life, I never really had to get the guidance as to which way to flow with myself. So, but Michael, you're doing the same thing. You're not getting too many of those obstacles coming along your way.
They come. It's more, as you mentioned, how you persevered through just, you know, discouragement, if you will.
Yeah, it always happens. The lucky thing, and that's God's blessing, and nobody else's, I got to tell you, is our health, our personality, and energy. That comes from someone far beyond us, and that's what gives us what we have. Without that, I don't know if we have anything. So.
Well, I started as an entrepreneur. Almost the definition of an entrepreneur is the guy that's living on the edge because you push the envelope in all directions. What you have to do is you don't panic. You never panic. You stay calm. You do the best you can every day. You find out what you're doing wrong, and you fix it. But you stay calm and just fix the problem, and that usually takes care of things. And once you're an entrepreneur, At a certain point in your life, you have to convert to not being an entrepreneur, just being a regular business person. And you have to know what the time is, where you're not living in the edge and you're living a more solid life. And I tell that to all young people that are going into business. Okay, you're an entrepreneur for 5 years. At a certain point, you got to convert to running a more solid business.
Mike, I was very fortunate that where I grew up in Lowell, a 6-tenement block, all Greeks. But we had people like Arthur Anton, Mike DeMoulis, a number of people, Vestchigers, who went on and became successful, and we looked up to them. We're very fortunate that the Greeks that I grew up with were better than the Jewish. We were smarter than them, we were more aggressive than them. In high school, we were valedictorians, salutatorians, we were county medalists, as we call it, because we thrived for success, we worked at it. And let me tell you about difficulties. When I started in business, it was very difficult because I was going up against all the giant companies. And my pediatrician, who was Jewish, Gil Coker, said, "Are you crazy? Do you know who you're going up against? Merck, Eli Lilly, Hart Davis, Pfizer. What do I care? I grew up with nothing, so if I end up with nothing, nothing happens." But I learned one thing working really for Johnson & Johnson, which I thought was really what led me to be successful. When you see a physician start up with the best, go see the medical director, go see the chief of medicine, chief of pediatrics. And I'll never forget going to the Children's Hospital. And I'll never forget, the man still remembers me today. There was a big company in the office and he was questioning him about the drug. And I said, I got up and said to the girl, "I don't feel good." And he only would see you once a year. Now I had salesmen who went out, but I wanted to see him because he controlled Boston. I went to the Harvard County Library that I was a member, and it was a steroid that's used for asthma. And I studied that. Can't believe it. She calls me up, she says, there's a cancellation, can you come in here? Guy's name was Harvey Colton. He started throwing questions at me. I answered all three. He says, "What do you do for the company?" I said, "I'm a salesman." "I'm asking you the question, what do you do with the company?" "Well, I'm the owner of the company." He says, "I knew that. There's only 3 guys that are allowed in the office. You're one of them." You know what happened in 2 months? I was doing $500,000 at the hospital. Guys are thinking, "How'd you do that?" Either one, they went around to all the physicians. "Hey, see the man, see Baracus. He knows what he's doing." Product knowledge. Knowing what you're selling. Don't let anyone slip you up. Know more about the product. When I go buy a car, and I say, "Are you selling cars?" "What do you sell?" "What are you, used car salesman?" "I sell my new car." You can't ask me the question. You gotta know what you're selling. By knowing what you're selling, you know what happens? People want to see you. They don't want to see you yet. Thank you all for being here.
Good afternoon. My name is Cassandra Romas from Short Hills, New Jersey, and it's almost like a follow-up question. I've noticed there's been a proliferation of laws, regulations, rules, codes, and I wonder how any young person, or any person at all, can establish that business or take advantage of that opportunity, even if they have passion, energy, insight, or even some networking. How do you get around this almost suffocating type of rules and regulations that are squeezing businesses today? Do you research what area you want to go in first? What do you do? How do you guide a young person or any person today to establish a business?
Well, you know, our business is highly regulated from the start. We have the Federal Trade Commission on any promotional material, the Food and Drug Administration. But to start, you have to be cautious. You need to know. That's why I said you need a good lawyer, a good accountant. There's permits, there's regulations. You start. Need an ID number to start a business, you gotta know to pay taxes, even though you may not be making money, you know, but I think the basic fundamentals you need to know. And today, everything's regulated. Everything's regulated. I know his business is regulated. We're all regulated. It all depends on the intensity of the industry. When you're dealing with people, health, food, hey, a lot of regulations. A lot of regulations. And you need to know them. You need to bring in a regulatory person. I used to have a division, regulatory. We go over to the Federal Trade Commission, Food and Drug in Washington, and learn the new laws are coming up, because every day there's a new law. You know, it's like accounting. Don't pay taxes. Next thing you know, you go to your accountant and spend more money with the accountant to tell you about the new law that Congress has passed. I mean, you need to become also, when you're successful, politically active in your industry. To be able to talk to congressmen, senators, reps, and even your state people. Hey, what are you doing? Company's going to move to New Hampshire. Company's going to move to Connecticut. They're driving us out of the business. I was manufacturing in Indiana. And I was doing all my printing in Texas. They wanted to charge me 25 cents a brochure in Massachusetts. I went to Texas, printed million brochures for physicians, mailed them out of Texas, saved a lot of money. So you got to learn all these things in business.
And I go back to my words, don't panic. You take one day at a time. But, you know, Congress and the city legislatures, the state legislatures, pass thousands of laws every year. Have you heard of any laws being deleted? I mean, it's out of control. And, you know, it's just, you deal with it every day.
I have to give you an example.
Go ahead.
How ridiculous it is. I'm a property manager. I oversee a large commercial office building. And as the landlord and the property manager, I have to oversee everything in the building. We had an unexpected visit from the Union County Department of Environmental Protection Agency. And these gentlemen came in unannounced, actually beautiful new outfits and monogram names on their saying a brand new car as well. And as they went through their inspection, unfortunately, that's because it's a credit to my building manager and myself, everything was pristine. Our boilers, our chillers, our logs, everything. And at the last minute, the inspector goes, "Where are your air permits?" By the way, you have to have air permits. You have to have a permit for air. So it was true. So, showed them where we had our 5 air permits, beautifully framed, matching frames in the boiler room. The gentleman looked at it, and he saw, this was in 2012, that they were valid from 2009 to 2014. And he saw that the certificate had been signed by a certain gentleman who had just passed away. He called us in total violation because the gentleman who signed the permit was now deceased. I said, why? He goes, what if the EPA wants to talk to them? What happened? I said, well, at the time this gentleman signed it, everything was in order. It's still in order. You've just inspected it. He goes, okay, no problem. With 1 week, we got a letter. We were fined. We had to reapply, and we had to spend $4,000 just to get 5 new air permits that were already valid. So I just want to let you know it's not easy to...
What city is that?
That was in Union County, New Jersey.
I'll make sure I don't come there. By the way, were you against the crispy people?
I just want to let you know that I was just saying you do have to be knowledgeable to establish a to keep up the business. And I suppose we do have to hire the gentleman that you're talking about. Marketing people, accounting people, lawyers, and so forth. Otherwise, I don't know how you can take advantage of an opportunity.
Look, I don't know the situation. What you just told me, I would just say, is somebody out to get me for some reason. That's why I made a joke about where you were going to.
No, I was just wondering if they were on tape. Okay, thank you very much.
Hi. Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Joe Kogalakis, and I'm from Dunedin, Florida. And I suppose my question is a little bit more of a personal nature. And probably since it's Valentine's Day, more for my wife's benefit as far as the response than even mine. Because I'm a second generation. My father came here and started a construction company in New York that over the course of the last few years I've bought out my father, uncles, and brother, and which has changed my life tremendously. And while I hope I share your passion for your respective businesses, I'm on the road all week long. And it comes to the point now where you're missing your soccer games and you're missing your children's parent-teachers conferences and excuse me, Your Eminence, but every Sunday I threaten to quit the parish council because it's the only day that I typically have to stay home. But my wife is the one that actually gets me up every morning, gets me going there. But I'm having a tough time balancing family and fellowship and faith. And the reason my wife gets me going to church on Sundays is that she credits our faith and family with the success, which then she deals you into it, you get them and you go. But I guess, how have you all been able to balance your careers with your churches? Is your involvement with leadership relatively new? I mean, I don't know if many of you have been involved in leadership, or is it something that after a certain age of being on the road all week, you realize that it's time to give back, and hopefully I'm not at that age yet. So my question is, I guess each of you, do you have any kind of advice you can give?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of sacrifice and success, right? And in my mind, it's not the faith so much, because faith is an aura that lives within you, and of course you can express it, and it's a nice opportunity socially to do something with your family as well. You know, John mentions the greatest country in the world. Indeed, it is, right? On the other hand, it's also the most complicated social environment one can live in. I've spent many years living in Europe and many countries in Europe, and I tell you, even today, even though Europe has to be more competitive on a global basis, global competition is placing a lot of pressure on all of us. But the Europeans always, I was struck that the Europeans were always balancing their life much more effectively than the Americans. Because opportunities come at us here and they're just there to be had, we sacrifice. And unfortunately, we sacrifice family and parents, and that's a tough choice to make. And I'm not sure I've always balanced that. Thank God I had a great wife that was able to maintain a stable family environment. But having said that, I know that I was away a lot, I would work hard, and perhaps you're tense in your business, and so therefore you might bring it at home. I'm not sure there's an answer. It's a very personal question that we all have to face. And my personal suggestion is that we ought to be more moderate about chasing the opportunities, and that's not advice I've taken in my life, incidentally. But I think if you can accomplish it, I think it's better to do that than to achieve unlimited success. So anyway, no, I'm not sure there's any answer other than a personal one.
Everyone has to make their own decisions. It's a balance between your work environment, your family, and then after work and your family, then whatever else you choose to be the number 3 spot.
I have nothing to add. I just, my first 8 to 10 years in business, I concentrated in business. When it was successful and the people ran it for me, but I oversaw everything, I joined the Greek Council. I became president of the church in my community. I followed in Arthur Hanson's footsteps. I became chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, not in Mrs. County. I got involved outside the church also. I think it was very important that you need to do that. You know, we served in the hospital boards. We became chairman of hospital boards because we wanted to identify the community that we were Greek also, that we could we were very successful, I can tell you. Right, Arthur?
You know, that reminds me, I was at a 50th wedding anniversary for a couple, very successful, and I went to toast them, and I said, happy 50th anniversary. In all seriousness, the wife looked at me, and she said, thank you, but it's not my 50th wedding anniversary. I said, but it is. She said, no, I only saw him for half my marriage. We've only been married 25
That's why I'm still celebrating 50.
That's true. I'm looking forward to it. I think this will be the last question. Hi.
Thank you guys for coming today and for the weekend. My name is Michelle Rodakis. I'm from Portland, Oregon. And I was wondering if you could touch on women in your businesses, specifically those between 30 and 40 who are highly educated and choosing between a more traditional lifestyle at home. Maybe you were raised, most of us, I think in this room, were raised with stay-at-home moms. But now having master's degrees, we do want to use that, but we also have our own families and kids. And if you could kind of touch on, do you make special accommodations, or how many women are higher up in the top tier at your businesses, making higher levels, who have families and multiple kids, maybe not just one? And just kind of touch on that environment, because I think last time I checked, there were more women in the United States with master's degrees than men. And so, if you could just touch on that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to tell you that I won the Athena Award in Massachusetts for hiring more women executives. Fortunately, one of them was my sister. She was chief financial officer. But I had more women in research. They ran the research facility. Had more people in finance, women, who were all VPs. And just happened that I was chosen that year, which was, I believe, 1995, to win the Athena Award, and the award was given in Chicago for companies that promoted women. And I had, out of 100, I think 85 salespeople around the United States, possibly 60 were women.
Well, women have taken a big step in the workforce, and in our company, they have the ability to excel. And I think, I don't believe in saying, oh, well, I have 10 executives, 5 of them have to be women. I think women have to have the ability to be tough and to have the ability to take the job upon them and move forward. You can't, I don't believe the statistics, I don't know how. I have found that tough women, no matter what industry, the insurance industry, the legal profession, they go out and fight hard. And I would hire a tough woman sometimes before I would hire a tough guy.
Well, some guys just need a tough woman to be managed. That's not the case. They handle easily. So, but nevertheless, I don't think you see a lot of prejudice. I know with a lot of our executive staff, I never get the sense, because I would really react to it. I feel like I would react to it. I think it's all about competence and commitment and performance, not necessarily whether you're attractive or a woman or a man, or in some cases even if you have some handicap. I don't see a great deal of it, but having said that, no matter how many offices I've been going to in New York or anywhere, there's still more male executives, far more male executives than female, even though the fact is that more women graduate today with masters and more than men. And I think that will be just a matter of time. There's some issues still to be resolved when women need to be house, to have families and be off for 4 months or 3 months. How do you adjust to that? I'm not sure companies have the solutions to that sometimes. So I think women are being respected for their education and their capabilities, more so than I remember when I was young, in training programs, there would hardly be a woman in them. Today you see a lot more women in them, and they're much more vocal. I think they're sharp and I think they earn the same respect in most cases as men. But having said that, I still do not see as many of the top ranks as I think deserve to be. But I think it's evolving and coming, particularly through education. So it's,
at this point, I think everyone will agree this has been incredibly inspirational.